At this week's class, I had 5 riders. The one coming up here, you see, is a young lady whose practice prior to getting here just needed her skills to be refined by me. And of course, I did that for her. And the rider coming up now is on a big Victory touring motorcycle. And he has another bike. I think he said it was a Fat Boy that doesn't have any problems with, but he has problems with this bike. The thing with the Victories, they're a long motorcycle, but they have a great lean angle. If you take advantage of that great lean angle, it's pretty easy. But getting a person to do that, well, that's where the problems lie. This rider said he had a 19-inch front tire, and he was wondering if that was going to affect the handling. It does, but very slightly. He didn't have any serious problems. And we had a rider, in fact, a brain surgeon, and he's on the Sportster. He has 900 miles total of experience, but he practiced prior to getting here, rented my Sportster, and did very well. If you practice and have a good handle on the techniques prior to coming to the class, you are way ahead of the game. The rider you see here is a young lady, and she's on the right bike to learn the techniques, but she has an extremely high fear level. That's a Honda 500 Rebel, same size as the 300 Rebel, but she's got a real high fear factor. Now, by the way, if you're wondering what this is, we're under a giant tent because they've moved the COVID testing out of here, but they left the tent, which really helps us because it was a hot day. That's what you see on the Sportster there is that a rider, I said, 900 miles of riding experience. Coming up behind is the young lady. Her name is Becky. Had a great sense of humor, always a big smile on her face, and had no fear at all, zero. She wasn't afraid of that motorcycle. Overcoming your fears is the most difficult thing. If you've got a high fear level, it doesn't mean that you can't ride. It just means it's going to take you a lot longer to get a handle on the techniques. This rider's out of New York, and he's the one who has the 19-inch front tire. As you see, he's not having a problem. He could get a little bit more aggressive with the motorcycle, and that's really the only hint I could give him is to maybe add a little bit of speed, get those floorboards down. You want to get those floorboards scraping under controlled conditions so you know your motorcycle's lean limits. You don't want to find out those lean limits while rounding a curve at 50 or 60. And this young lady, I think she had about 3,000 miles riding experience. And like I said, she's on the right bike. It's a small, light, easy to maneuver motorcycle. But she's got that high fear factor of leaning the bike, and she still doesn't have quite a good handle on the friction zone. That was her main problem. She kept going out of the friction zone, which a lot of times when the bike goes out of the friction zone, you've got the clutch fully engaged, and you give it a little throttle, the bike is going to straighten up and go out of the exercise. Here's our rider on the Victory touring motorcycle, getting better with every time he goes through. Once the riders are accomplished at riding the motorcycle through the offset cone weave series of left turns and right turns, we move on to the intersection. The intersection consists of 4 legs, like a 4-leaf clover. Legs are 24 feet wide by 38 feet long. And as you can see, the riders are doing very well. There's our rider with just 900 miles of riding experience. We add a circle to 2 of the legs in the intersection. He handles it just about perfectly. A rider with the 19-inch front tire, he's not having any kind of a problem. Of course, a 19-inch front tire doesn't help you, but it doesn't hurt that much. It's just, if we were doing 18-foot turns, yeah, it could be, you'd be pushing that bike to its limits to make those 18-foot turns. Here's our rider on the Victory, getting much better. He got a good handle on the friction zone and using the rear brake, picked up his speed a little bit, and improved greatly. Once they can do the circles, I have them perform a figure 8 inside 2 of the legs. You should be just as good turning to the right as you are to the left. And the figure 8 also forces you to use your head and eyes to the extreme. Granted, you never have to do a figure eight on the street, but having the ability to use your head and eyes, turn that head as quickly as possible, and look only where you want to go will help you in just about every situation on the street. If you're not familiar with using your head and eyes and looking only where you want the motorcycle to go, when a car pulls out in front of you, you'll tend to stare at that car, and the bike goes wherever you look. You stare at that vehicle that violated your right-of-way, chances are you're going to hit it. 3 of the riders were able to make it to the snowman, which most people find the most difficult exercise because there are a lot of cones in a confined area, and it's a series of circles. The first one being 30 feet to the left, the second one 26 feet to the right, and the last one 24 feet to the left. And as you saw, Becky handled it just fine. I coached the rider here because the first time he went through, he was trying to look at the cones right in front of him instead of the green-tipped cones. There are 2 green-tipped cones in each one of the circles. If the rider looks just for those 2 green cones, it's fairly easy. If you start looking at the cones right in front of your motorcycle, yeah, you tend to hit them, or you have to run out of the exercise. He's doing a good job using as much space as he can. Gets into the tightest one, and there's plenty of room for error here. This 24 foot, the bike turns in 18 feet, so you got 6 feet to screw it up and still make it through, as long as you look for those green tip cones. Our new rider here looking where he should be, finding the place where he wants to put that front tire. And he too has no problem with this exercise. He, of course, he rides a 650 Vulcan right now, and he'd like to, at some point, move up to a bigger motorcycle. So that's why he's taking the course. He's not ready yet for the bigger motorcycle. I know this because we put him on the Road King, and he still, the extra weight really gave him some fear. So another 4 or 5 hours of practice on a bike like he owns or the Sportster, and he'll be fine. Becky with no fear, perfect posture. She stays straight up, lets the bike lean under her, does a great job every time. I decided to reverse the snowman, have the riders go through both ways so that their first turn is 30 feet to the right, 26 feet to the left, and then of course the tightest of the circles, the 24 foot, will be to the right. Since so many people have a problem going to the right versus going to the left, it's a good way to do this. It's a great exercise to have you turning in both directions. Unfortunately, my wife missed this Sunday's class. She got her second COVID shot and wasn't feeling very good at all. I was hoping to get her there on the revival to show everybody that, yeah, I'm going to let her ride that motorcycle. As you can see, with this tiny woman here, size and strength means nothing. The weight of the motorcycle means nothing. It's all technique. If you got the technique, you could ride anything. Till next time.